Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be building a to-do list application in React. So we're going to have a sorting functionality. So when I drag one of these to-do list items, we can sort the items accordingly. Okay, we're also going to be using local storage. So when I refresh this page, it's going to maintain the order of the to-do list items. And also, as you can see, we have nice animations as well. When I reorder the items, when I refresh again, it's going to maintain the same order. And also, as you can see, each to-do list item, every time we re-render the page or when we refresh the page, we're going to have a unique color for each item. It's going to generate a random color. So I'm going to refresh again. The colors will be different next time. Each to-do list item is going to have a random color each time the page loads. Okay, so when I double click this check mark icon, it's going to complete the task, and also it's going to animate. When I double click it again, it's going to uncheck the text. Okay, so double click again is going to check the text, so that means it's completed. And also we can sort these based on priority. So here it says high, so if it's low, I can put it all the way down here if the priority is low. Okay, I can uncheck. And also we can display this in a grid view. Okay, we can still sort these in a grid view, and when I refresh again, the order is going to stay the same because we're using local storage to persist the data and the state. Okay, so I can still filter this, bring it back to list view. I can add an item and say add item. There it is. It's going to animate. So to delete the item, I'm going to double click the item here, double click, it's going to animate and then delete. Okay, I'm going to do the same for these ones. Double click, deleting. Okay, it's animating in when I add something. And also when I try to add something, when the input is empty, it's going to say to do must be at least 3 characters long. So there's a validation as well. It doesn't allow you to add a to do unless there's 3 characters in the input. Okay, let me add one more item. Add item. Okay, as you can see, everything works fine. Let me try to add more again. More items. As you can see, we can now scroll down. So I got rid of the scroll bar, but the app still looks nice without a scroll bar, so you can still scroll. Okay, you can delete on double click, delete, you can sort, you can complete tasks. Okay, so yeah, that's basically the whole project. So if you have any questions, please don't forget to ask me through the comment section, or if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. You can make comments, you can request anything you want me to do in the future. So if you want to request a video for about a particular topic, just let me know in the comment section, and then I'll make the video. Okay, so now I've created the project already. I have a few folders as well. I'm going to be explaining each folder and each file you see here. So in the app.js, there's nothing here. There's just a hello people h1. And then in the styles, there's a file called global style, which is empty. It's just a basic setup for style components. Here we're just importing create global from style components. We're going to be installing style components in a bit. And then we have the themes. So here are variables of the colors that we're going to be using. So you can get these variables, these colors from the starter file. So everything is in the starter file. Everything you see here is in the starter file. And then in the data is just some basic to-dos that are going to be seeing on the screen by default. So these are like, pre-created to-dos. And then we have the context folder, and then there's a context file. So here is just a basic setup of context. We haven't really done the functionality yet. So here we're creating a theme context for the theme. So we want to be able to use our variables for the theme. Just in case we also change the theme, we have another context to update that context for the theme. So we have theme context and then the context for updating the theme. And then here we're creating 2 functions. For this function is allows us to be able to use the theme, and then this function allows us to update the context. Okay, so that's why we have 2 functions. Okay, And then we have the components folder, which is empty. So everything you see here is empty. Everything, most of it is pretty self-explanatory. And then yeah, let's start with app.js. Actually, I'm running the project already. As you can see, it's empty. It says hello people. And then this is the final project. And then you can see here we have those default to-dos. Okay, so now let's go back to the project. Let's start with yeah, the app.js. So here let's do, we've created a global style here. Let's start with resetting some styles, and then I'm gonna set the margin to 0. For some reason it's not doing auto completion, so I'm going to be pasting in some styles as well. So here I'm just going to paste in the basic styles to reset the page. I don't know why it's not doing auto completion. It was working fine before, but now I don't know, for some reason it's not working. And then in the body, I'm just going to put in a font. And then let's go to Google Fonts and download a font. So the one that we're going to be using is called Nunito. And then let's go Google Fonts. Google Fonts. And then let's look for Nunito. Okay, so there's the font. So we're going to start from regular 400. Let's go medium 500. And then let's go 700. I think you can go extra bold. And then we're just going to copy the import here. Copy the import. And then go to the global file and just paste in the import here. We don't need the style. We only need the import. Okay. So now we're importing the font. Now let's save. Actually, we need to use this global style. So let's go to the index.js. Here, we're just going to say global style. Make sure you're importing like this, global style. Save, something wrong. Can resolve style components. Okay, we have not installed style components. We need to do that now. So let's install the libraries that we're going to be using. So we're going to say npm install styled components. Styled components. So we're going to install styled components, and we're also going to install GSAP because we're going to do some animations with GSAP. And also we need to install React UUID for our unique, to get unique IDs every time we create a new to-do. Okay, so style components and GSAP React UUID at the moment. Let's install those. Okay, for some reason my PC is making a lot of noise. I think it's because I'm running a lot of things at once in the background. Okay, so now let's start npm. Let's start the project again. npm start. Okay, let's do yes if you're running another project in the background. Okay, so okay, perfect. So now we have the font. So now what we need to do, let's go back to the styles. So in here we don't need to do much. Actually, let's go back to the app.js. In here we're going to say const app styled, because we're going to create a style component style. So equal to styled. So make sure you import styled from style components. Okay, and then this one is going to be a div. Okay, and then copy this app styled, replace this. In here I'm going to create a form in the app.js. So I'm going to say form.form. Okay, so I'm creating a form, and then I'm going to have an h1. I'm going to say today's tasks. Okay, after that we're going to create a div. It's called input container. You can name it whatever you want. So here I'm just going to do an input, and then I'm going to do a placeholder, and then I'm going to say add, I think, a task. You can put whatever you want as a placeholder. Okay, so after that, after the input, we're going to do dot submit btn container, and then here we're just going to put a button that says add to do. I'm gonna say plus add to do. Okay, now let's save. Let's see what we got. So here's our input. There's input is there. So now what we need to do is we need to create some kind of a state so we can give our input some values. So what we need to do now, I'm going to import my to-dos. Okay, import my to-dos from data. So our default to-dos here, I'm going to say const. I'm going to create a state, a new state for the to-dos. I'm going to say to-dos. Okay, and then I'm going to do set to-dos. I'm going to be pasting in some code because I don't know why it's not doing auto completion. I'm going to say use state. Okay, and then here I'm going to say my to-dos. So that's the initial state value. My to-dos. So those to-dos we have. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do ul down here. I'm going to say ul dot to do. I'll say to-dos container con. So I'm going to map all of the to-dos. Okay, I'm going to say to-dos dot map. Oops, to-dos dot map. So here I'm going to get each to-do. So for each to-do, I'm going to return a component called list. Okay, so this component is going to be like our to-do item. Okay, list. Now I'm going to say return. We're going to return the list. So make sure you import list. Okay, so list like this, and then don't forget we need a key. Okay, so the key is going to be to do. We can actually destructure this const need id name completed or destruction from the to do. Okay, so for the key we're just going to pass in the id because it's going to be a list of items. Okay, I'm going to save this. Now let's see. So now we have 3 items. Okay, because we have 3 to-dos at the moment by default, but we're not inputting the names of the to-dos. So what we need to do, we need to pass in the props. Okay, so I'm gonna pass in the name, and then completed, same thing, completed. Okay, so now let's go to the here and destructure those. So we have name, completed, and then what else did we pass in? Actually, we need the ID too, so we need to do the ID as well. Let's do ID equal to ID. Okay, so now we have name, ID. Perfect. So for example, if I put name here, we should be able to see the name, okay, of the default to-dos that we have. Okay, so now we are returning the list. Now let's do the list. Actually, let's do this list component. So in this list, we're not going to do a lot of stuff in here. So here basically we're just going to have a list item li. Okay, li, and then we're going to have a paragraph which is going to be name. We're going to have our name in there, and then next to the li we're going to have a button. We'll say dot complete btn. Okay, so in the complete button I'm going to have an icon. Okay, so let's get some icons from Font Awesome. I'm going to say Font Awesome CDN, and then I'm going to go to the Font Awesome, copy the first one, the link tag, copy, go to the public index, and then just paste in the CDN here, the Font Awesome link here. Okay, and then close that. So here I need to look for an icon. I'm going to say Font Awesome, get started, Font Awesome website. Okay, let's go to the icons. So search for an icon. Here I'm gonna look for check. Let's go to the free ones. Okay, go to the circle check, copy the icon. Here I'm gonna import. I'm gonna say const check equal to the icon. So here, make sure you change it to class name. Okay, so now we have the check icon. So here we're just gonna put the check icon in the completed. I don't know why it's doing this. Check icon. I don't know what extension is ruining my auto completion. Check icon. Okay, so now we have the check icon on each item. Okay, so now what we need to do is let's do some styles. So I'm gonna say const list styled. I'm gonna do equal to styled. Make sure you import styled components styled.dev. Okay, all right, so now copy this and then replace. Okay, so for now we'll leave this as it is. I'll be back to style this later. Now let's go back to the app.js. So in the app.js, I mean, you could create a new component for this form, I mean, if you want to keep organized. Okay, I mean, we might do that later if we have more time in the video. So now here I'm gonna say const handle. Actually, I need a new state as well. The state is for the input value. I'm gonna say const, I'm gonna say value, I'm gonna say set value. Okay, so it's going to be like use state as well. So here it's going to be an empty string by default. So we have value, set value. So by default, the input, we want the value of the input to be the value. Okay, so on change, we want to say handle change. Okay, so we're going to create a new function to handle like the change of the input. Const handle change. Oh my days, handle change. Okay, so it's going to also take the event. Okay, because we want to get the we want to get the target of the input. Okay, that's why it's going to take the event object, so we can select, we can target, like, let's say the name or whatever we're entering in the input. Okay, so in here we're just going to update the value to whatever is in the input. Okay, so I'm gonna say set value to e dot target dot value. Okay, so we're just I don't know why I'm getting an issue here on change. Oh, handle change, handle change. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to say cog. Actually, let me cog the value in here. Value. Let's go inspect. Let's go to the console, refresh this, and then let's entering something. As you can see, it's taking the input value. Okay, perfect. So now we have the handle change. So now we need to focus on getting that state value. So let me go to the state. Actually, let me go to the components, click the app state. As you can see, it's empty. When I start entering something, the state is updating. So I want to take that value from the state, okay, and create a new to do. Okay, so how do we do that? So to create a new to do, we're just going to create a new function called handle submit. I'm gonna say handle submit. Okay, handle submit. Okay, so in here in the handle submit, what do we want to do? Well, I'm going to say whenever we submit, for example, this form, when I go to the add to do, when I click, it's refreshing the page. So I want to prevent this behavior here, the default behavior. make this smaller. I want to prevent this, default behavior. So to do that, let's do, it's going to take in an event as well. We're going to say e dot prevent default. Okay, like so. So now it's going to get rid of the behaviors, but on form, on submit, you can do on the button click, this button, or you can do on the form, you can say on submit. That's when you can call the function handle submit. Okay, so now let's save. So when I click, now it's not doing that, refreshing, it's not refreshing the behaviors anymore. So now in here to submit, I want to update the to-dos. Okay, so how do I do that? I'm gonna create a new variable. I'm gonna say new to-dos because I want to update. Okay, so I'm going to copy the existing to-dos, okay, whatever we have in the array, and then I'm going to create a new to-do. Okay, so here I'm gonna say ID, I'm gonna say UU ID, I'm gonna call the function. I need to also import UU ID, I think, like from react UU ID, like so. Okay, perfect. So now we need to call this function here, and now we also need name. So name, we're going to set to the value, okay, whatever is coming from the input, completed, and then we're going to set that to false. Okay, so now that's our new array, and then we're going to update this. So to update, we do set to-dos, and then we're going to set to-dos to what? To the new to-dos. Okay, and then I want to clear the input and then set value to an empty string because we're going to clear the input. Okay, I'm going to say clear input. Okay, perfect. So now I want to add something. It's adding here. Okay, it's also adding empty stuff. Okay, so we want to do nothing if this empty, or do an alert or something. Let's do if. Let's do if not value. If not value, or value dot length. The length is less than 3. Okay, so if the length is less than 3, we're going to return. Let's do alert. To do must be at least, I think, three characters. You can make this whatever you want, characters, like so. Okay, perfect. So now let's save. Let's try to submit. Now we have an alert because we have no 3 characters. When I do 2, still not working. When I do 3, perfect, it's adding here. So when I refresh, it's going to remove everything anyway. Perfect. So now we have the submission. We need to work on the delete functionality. Okay, so how do we do the delete, the remove functionality? To remove to do, we're gonna, let me collapse this and submit. Let's do remove to do. Okay, submit, remove. Okay, const handle remove. Okay, and then here it's going to take an ID. So basically, to do the remove is basically we're filtering our array, and we're not going to return the ID that doesn't match the ID. Okay, so here actually we only want to return the ID which does not match our current ID. Okay, let's do return here. Okay, so we're going to filter And let's do const. Let's put that into a variable filtered equal to, we're going to do to-dos dot filter. So here I'm gonna get each to do, then we're going to return. Okay, so what are we going to return? So we're going to return to do each to do dot id, which is not equal to id. Okay, so whatever id we pass in here, so we want to return it to, if this to do id here does not match the id we pass in, that's we only want to return those items. If it matches the id, don't return that item. Okay, only the ones that doesn't match, that's what we want to return. So if I click this one, it's going to match the id, so we want to return the ones which the IDs are not matching. So when I click this one, it's not going to return that because the ID matches the item we click on, only the ones which does not match. Okay, and then here we just need to update set to do's to filter data, the data that we have filtered. Okay, and remove, I'm just gonna change this to remove to do, I think. I'm sorry about the background noise, there's a plane. Okay, so now remove to do. Let me go. When do I want to remove the to do? Well, I'm going to pass it as a prop actually. List, I'm gonna put on the next line, name, ID, completed. Okay, so here I'm gonna say remove to do. Go to remove to do. This extension is weird. I need to find out what's going on. Okay, I'll go here. I'll also get the remove to do. Remove to do. So when do I want to remove this to do? Well, I only want to remove when I double click this list item. Okay, so I'm gonna say on double click, I'm gonna remove the to do, and then I need to pass in the ID, so we need to make it a callback function. Okay, so let's double click, it's removing the item. Okay, double click, removing the item. Okay, perfect. So I think let's start with actually let's start with drag and drop actually. So now when we actually, let's start with local storage. Let's add more items. Add items. Okay, I think it's wise to start with drag and drop. Let's go to the library. So we're going to use a library called DND kit, drag and drop kit. So let's go here. So we need to install the DND kit core first. Cancel this. Let's install the core. So what we need, let's go to get started. We need to something sortable. We need to be able to sort. So to sort, let's go to the sortable. We need to see how to install this. Okay, so here, sortable. Click this, copy, paste. We install DND sortable. Okay, perfect. So now let's try to do npm start. Excuse me. Npm start. Okay, so let me close this. Let me close this. Let's do yes. Okay. So now everything should be working as it should be. Perfect. We can delete, refresh, it's still there. So the library, how do we use it? Let's start with the app.js first. So in here, I'm going to collapse the URL. I'm gonna cut this, cut. So in the app.js, we need to import a few things. So we need to import, we're going to import DND context, DND context, okay, context from, oh my days, from at DND core, okay. And then we also need to indicate sortable. In the sortable, we're going to import sortable context, okay. Sortable context, that's what we need for now, DND context and sortable context. So we want to be able to use this context, okay. So let's go back here. So make sure you still have the UL that you copied, that or you cut or whatever, or cut or copy. Make sure you still have it on your clipboard. So what we're going to do here, we do DND DND context. This is the main one, the main context. We need to wrap everything with the DND context, okay. And then when the items to be sortable, we do sortable context, okay. And then now you can paste in the UL, okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it to set up in the app.js. So we have the DND context surrounding everything with the context, and then the sortable context. We want to sort that, okay. So now what we also need, let's go to the this context. Let's do, it's going to take a prop. Let's call it items. It's called items, and then we do to-dos dot map, okay. So for each to-dos, we want to get the ID of each to-do, okay. So to-do, so each ID, we're returning the ID of the to-do dot ID, okay. So here in the items, we're basically mapping through the to-dos and then returning the ID of the to-dos, because we want to sort based on the ID, okay. Sorting the items, so it's going to be based on the ID, okay. Now I'm gonna save. Now we need to go to the list. So in the list, we're going to import a lot of things, okay. So we need to import a hook called use sortable. So here we're going to say import use sortable like this from sortable, and then we're going to also import CSS from the utilities, okay. That's pretty much it for the sortable actually and the CSS. So what we also need to do now, we're going to do a bit of destructuring. So I was reading this on the documentation anyway, so if you need to learn more information, just go on the documentation and then you can read through this whole page. I had to read through this whole page. So here we're going to destructure from the use sortable hook, okay. To use sortable, so this use sortable hook, I'm just going to pass in the ID, okay, because we're going to sort everything based on the IDs. And then we're going to do attributes, and then we're going to get listeners, and then we're going to get set node reference. We're going to get a transform and a transition, okay. So that's it. I'm going to do this so you can see it, okay. I'll do it like this. So we're destructuring all these properties from the use sortable hook, and then here we're going to do a style. We'll do const style equal to, I'm just going to paste in the transform. So we're going to do transform css.transform.toString. So I don't know how this is working. I only read the documentation and it works. So we have the style, the transform, so which is coming from this utility here. Okay, now we have the style. What we need to do now, let's go down here, and then we need to pass in those properties. Okay, so let's do style. We need to put the style as well, the prop. Okay, so let's do style, and then we're gonna pass in that variable we created, and then the attributes. We're going to spread the attributes, and we're also going to spread the listeners. Okay, and then we're going to pass in a reference as well. A reference set node ref. Okay, so pretty much that's it. We should drag and drop now. As you can see, it's working nicely. We have drag and drop, but there's an issue though. If I want to replace the location of this drag and drop, it's not working. Okay, it's working, but when I drop, when I end the drag, so it's returning back to its position. So we want to keep it to the current position where it's on, but when I stop dragging it, it's going back to the default position. So we need to go back to the app.js. In here, we need to create a new function. It's going to be called handle drag and. Okay, so basically this handle drag and is going to allow us to to do something with, let's say we drag, we are holding this this list item. So the handle drag is going to allow us to do something. If we finish dragging this file, this item, we can do pretty much anything as when we stop the drag. Okay, so it's going to take in an event object. Okay, I'm going to copy this handle drag. So this handle drag, we're going to put it we're going to put it on the DND context. Okay, it's going to be on drag. It's called on drag and. Okay, handle drag and. So when we're dragging, so now let's see what this event gives us. Let's do COG. Let's do event. Okay, so now let's inspect. Let's go to the terminal console. There's something wrong here. We'll fix it later. Let's refresh this. The issue is gone now. So now when I drag something, when I let go, now we have an event object here. So in here, we want to get this over, and we also want to get the active. So the over, so when I take this item here, when I put it on another location, that's the over property. Okay, and then the active is the one you're currently holding, and then the over is like where you want to place it. That's the over property. Okay, so here we're going to destructure. We're going to destructure we want to get the active and the over, okay, properties. So we're going to do active and then an over properties like this, and then we're going to say event. We're going to get those two, the active and the over. So here we're going to check if the active.id is not equal to over.id. Okay, so what we're basically checking here is if the active ID, if this ID, this active one, is not equal to the over ID. If they're not the same, then we want to shift this array and put this item into this container. If the ID don't match. If the active and over, okay, so if active ID is not equal to over ID, if they're not the same, that's when we want to put this item, shift the items. But if the same, we don't want to do anything. But if it's different, we want to shift the array. Okay, that's basically what we're doing. We're checking here. So basically what we want to do, we're going to do set to do. So we're going to update the to do's because we're going to update the array, and then it's going to take a callback function. I'm going to say items. Okay, so in here I'm going to say const old index, and then I'm going to say equal to items, and then dot find index. Okay, I'm going to say, it's going to take in a callback function. I'm going to say item. We want to find the index of the item. So here I'm going to say item ID equal to active dot ID. Okay, and then we want to get the new index. Const new index, going to items dot find index. Item, it's gonna return item dot ID. Item dot ID, if it's equal to over dot ID. Okay, so here we're basically saying if the ID matches, okay, so if the old index ID matches the active ID, or for the new one, if this ID matches the over ID, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to create a new array with the new order. Okay, create new array with the new order. Okay, so I'm gonna say const new items. I'm gonna say dot items. Just we're using the spread operator. Okay, so this is the new items. It's with the new order, and then we want to also remove the item from the old index. Okay, so let's say here this is the index, right? When I put on the other, when we shifted the item to another container, we want to get rid of it, the item from this position to the next one. Okay, so how are we going to do that? So we're going to say I'm going to do remove the item from old index. Okay, so we want to remove from the old index and shift it to a new index. Okay, I'm going to say new items. I'm going to do splice. So here I'm going to say old index. So here I'm going to remove one item. Okay, one item here. So after that, we also want to insert the item at a new index. Insert the item at a new index. And then we're going to say new items. I'm going to say splice. We are going to use splice method to insert. I'm going to say new index. And then 0, that's the delete count. We're not deleting anything. We're inserting items. And then here we're just going to pass in the old index. Okay, now let's save. So let's see what we have. There's an issue. What does it say? Can I read properties map? Oh, because we're not returning anything. Actually, we need to return the new items. Return new items. Okay, perfect. Now let's refresh this. Perfect. So now, as you can see, it's working. Now it's staying on the correct place. Okay. I'll try to explain again. So here, old index, we are finding the index of the item that's matching the active ID. Okay. So let's say we're like finding the index item.id like this, holding the item. If it matches the active ID, that's our own index, our new index. If it's matching the over ID, okay? So the over ID is when I, change the position of the item to another slot. So that's the over ID, okay? So it's basically saying if the ID matches the over ID, that's our new index, which we want to place the item, okay? So that's the over ID. So if it's going to be a new index, okay? So this over ID here, so this is like the slot here, that's the over ID, that's going to be our new index. So the old index is where the file is right now, and then the new index is this over ID. Okay, so and then here we're going to say new items. So we're going to remove the old index and then insert the item at the new index. Okay, so when we drag the item and put it at the new index, we're using splice method to place that item at that new index, and then we're just returning new items. Okay, and then it's going to update the to-dos. Okay, so as you can see, the functionality works really fine. Okay, so we can add new items and new items. As you can see, it's fine, it's sorting. So now when I refresh, everything goes back to normal because we're not using local storage yet. So now we have the drag event. What we need to do now, let's do the styling actually now, and then we'll do the local storage. Okay, so let's start with the app.js. Okay, so now let's start with the app. So that's where we need to start styling with. Actually, let's start with the context because we need to actually do the themes. So let's go to the theme context. So here in the theme provider, I'm going to create a new state. I'm going to say const. I'm going to say theme and then set theme. Okay, and then we're going to say equal to use state. So the default theme is going to be 0. So the themes, if I go to the styles, there's themes. It's an array of objects. Okay, so let's say I have multiple themes, I have many objects. Okay, so I'm selecting the first index in this themes array, the first index. So the first index, this state 0, theme 0. Okay, so I'm gonna say const current theme equal to, I need to actually import themes. Okay, so themes, and then here I'm gonna say theme. Okay, so when we shift through the index, let's say it's by default it's 1. When we go to 1, it's gonna change. It's gonna select the next object. So in this instance, we have one object, but like it's gonna shift through. Let's say we have many, depending on our state. Okay, so basically what we need to do down here, we need to return. Okay, and then here we're just gonna say theme context dot provider to provider, and then here we need to do theme update context dot provider. Okay, and then here we're just gonna pass in the children. So now what we need to do now is let's go value. So for the value, I'm gonna say current theme, which is 0, the index of 0, which is the default theme. Okay, Here, let's say we want to update the theme. We need to also pass in the value for update context. So here for the value, we're gonna say set theme. Okay, so this set theme is going to be used to update the state, which is going to update the selector here. So the theme is 0. Okay, so now we should have access to our variables. So now we need to actually use this context. We need to go to the index.js and surround the app with the context. So here we're gonna say theme context. Make sure you import theme context from context, and then you put in the app, you surround it. Okay, there seems to be an issue. Theme update context consumer renders not a function. Theme context. Oh, my bad. So theme context should be coming from context, theme context. Perfect. Let me save. Theme context was not found. What did I name it? Theme context, theme provider, theme context. Theme provider, that's what I've named it. Let's go to the index.js. Theme provider. Perfect. So now we have theme provider. Oh, still another issue. I think we just need to save everything. Let's see. You forgot to export your component. Export const theme provider. Return. It's exporting. I don't know what I forgot to do. Strange. Theme context. I'm just trying to figure out where did I go wrong. Theme provider. Oh, should be provider. Okay, perfect. So now we should have access to our variables. Let's see if we do have access to the variables. So to use our variables, remember we have the theme context. Okay, the use theme context to use to consume the context. So let's go to the app. So up here, I'm going to say theme. I'm going to say const theme equal to use theme context. Okay, so now let's COG the theme to see what we got. Remember, the value of our theme is the current theme. So there it is. So the current theme is dark, and then we have all these variables that we're going to be using. Okay, perfect. So now let's use this theme. Okay, so I'm going to create a new prop here on the app. I'm going to say theme. Okay, so I want to be able to access the colors in the variable in the CSS. Okay, so here I'm going to put a min height and the padding. Okay, because I don't have auto completion, I have to paste in some styles. So here I'm going to say background color. Here I'm going to say props. So I want to get the prop that we passed in the theme prop. Okay, so I'm going to say props. The prop name is we do props. We do props.theme. That's the name of our prop. And then I'm gonna say color. I'm gonna put color bg3. That's the name of the variable I'm using. You can use any variables you want. So as you can see now, it's a dark background color. Okay. Then I'm just going to set the overflow of hidden. I'm going to do overflow, and then I'm going to set that to, you know, hidden. Oh my days, there's no auto completion. I'm going to paste in a lot of styles. Okay, so now let's do form. For the form, I'm going to do display flex, align items to center, and then I'm going to set a background of BG2, and then I'm going to do border radius. So I'm going to say 1 rem. Okay, so that's the border radius, and then I'm going to do margin bottom 2 rem, and then padding. Okay, so like that. Save. There it is. So now we're starting the form, and then I'm going to do a box shadow. So I have a box shadow variable. So we're going to do actually props. Then we're gonna do props. I'm gonna do dot theme, and then we'll do shadow 3. Okay, so that's the name of the box shadow. And then I'm gonna do a border. Now I'm going to start the H1. So for the font size, I'm going to do font size. I'm going to do clamp. I'm going to use the clamp function for our CSS function. So I want the font size to, you know, update based on the viewport width. Okay, so I'm gonna start. The minimum is 1.5 rem, and then the maximum is 2.5 rem. Okay, and then it's gonna update with the viewport width. I'm gonna say 2 VW. Okay, that's the font size. Now let's save. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna copy the rest of the styles and then paste in here. That's the color, props, the theme prop, and then getting the variable name. That's what we're doing. There it is. Perfect. So now we have today's tasks. Okay, I'm also going to start the input container. Let's start the input container now. So for the input container, I'm going to do position relative, and then I'm going to do font size of clamp and a width of 50%, and then I'm going to do a display flex. Okay, so display flex, and then align items to center and justify content to center. That's what I'm gonna do. This save. There it is. Okay, so now I'm gonna start with the button and the input. Button input, and then I'm gonna say font family. So for the font family, I'm going to say inherit. Okay, and then I'm going to do font size. So for the font size, we're going to do the clamp as well. Okay, so it's starting from 1 rem to 2 rem. So let's say when I inspect, when I keep decreasing, it's gonna change the font size, but for some reason it's not changing. Let me inspect. H1 font size. Clamp function H1 1.5 rem. I don't know why it's not working for some reason. 2 VW. Actually, this are comma separated. Okay, so make sure the comma separated. So it should resize accordingly. Okay, with the clamp function. Perfect. So now let's do the input on its own. Input, For the input, I'm just going to set the background of transparent and give it a border. So the color is color icons 3 for the border. So it's 1 pixel solid, color icons 3 for the color. Okay. And then I'm going to give it a color and a width. Okay, and then a focus, and then get rid of the outline on focus. Okay, when I click. Okay, and then I'm going to do a placeholder. I'm going to say end placeholder. So in the placeholder, I'm just going to change the color, okay, to gray 3, and then I'm going to do active, and it's actually active, and also I'm going to say comma and focus. Okay, I'm just going to change the border color to color icons. Save. Now when I click, perfect. Now I'm gonna do the button. I'm gonna do button. So the position of the button is absolute. I'm gonna remove the border and set the background color to color primary green. So this standard CSS styles. Position absolute, top 0, right 0. Okay, there it is. So now I just need to make it fill the entire width, the entire height of the this input container. So I'm gonna set the height to 70%, give it a bit of a padding, and give it a border radius top 7 pixels to the right side and to the bottom right. Okay, height 100%. There it is. Okay, so now we need to also give it a color of white, and on hover give it a different color. Okay, so on hover it's going to be color primary 2. Okay, so there it is. So now we have the form. Let me see how long I've been making the video. So it's been an hour already. Okay, so now let's do this area here, the main body, which is the to-dos container. To-dos container. Okay, so I'm going to give it an overflow of hidden, and then the background I'm gonna do background. So for the background, we're going to use our prop. Okay, so our prop is called theme. So I'm gonna say props. So the prop I'm looking for is called theme. Okay, props.theme. Okay, so the prop I'm looking for is called theme, and then here I'm going to say color bg2. Okay, so I'm going to give it a padding and a border radius, a shadow and a border. The border we've done before, 1 pixel, with the color icons 3. I'm gonna paste in the styles. Okay, there it is. So now we've done this border before. We actually need to apply this border on this thing here, on the form. So I'm gonna copy this, go to the form, border color icons 3. Okay, form, save. What is the border? For some reason it's not showing. Let me inspect this here. Form. Box shadow. Border. Oh, make sure you close. Okay. Save. Okay. There it is. So now it's showing nicely. Let's keep going with the styles. Okay. So now, what I need to style now is to-dos container. Let me go back. So here we have the to-dos container. So I'm going to add more properties actually, let me start with the list item first. So here, let's go to the list item and then let's do the styles. Okay, so here we also need to import the theme. Okay, so make sure it's inside the function const theme. We're creating a new variable and then we're going to say use theme context. Okay, make sure you import the context for that. Theme context. Okay, so make sure you import the theme context and go scroll down, and then we're going to pass it as a prop. We're going to pass in the theme. Now we're creating a new prop for the theme, so we can access the variables in our CSS. Okay, so here I'm going to do a background. So the background, I'm going to access the props. Okay, I'm going to say props.theme. Okay, and then here I'm going to look for color bg2. Okay, that's going to be the background, and I'm going to set the position to relative. Okay, I'm going to set the position to relative. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to style the link tag, the li tag. I'm going to give it a background color. Let's do red. Let's do background red for now, just to see if it's working. There it is, it's working. I'm going to give it a border radius padding. Okay, there it is. And then I'm going to say list style to none. I'm going to give it a shadow. Okay, and I have a cursor to pointer. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that. There it is. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see here in the finished product, when I refresh, it's going to give us a unique color every time I refresh. Okay, the color is going to be unique. So how do we do that effect? So we need to create a new function. Okay, let's do it up here. Random colors. Let's do const random colors. It's going to be like an array of random colors. So how do we get the random colors? So well, we're going to do theme dot button. That's the color. It's called gradient 1. Okay, so we have like 14 gradients like this, so you need to separate them with a comma. Okay, so it's coming from the theme, okay, which is our variables. So I'm going to paste the rest of the variables. Okay, you can add more colors you want in here. So we just want to generate random colors. I'm going to collapse this. Okay, so now we have an array of colors. Okay, so to randomize, I'm going to say randomize. Okay, I'm going to randomize the colors. Okay, I want to return a random color every time, you know, we run the page, or we re-render the page, or whatever, or refresh. So now we need to say const randomize color. Okay, so here we're going to say const random color equal to random colors. Okay, random colors, we're going to select a random color from the random colors array. So here we're going to say math.flow. Okay, math.flow, and then to generate a random whole number, that's why we're using the flow, so we can generate a whole number. Okay, and then we're going to do math.random So we're going to multiply that by the length of the random colors. Okay, so if you have like 14, 15 colors, it's going to multiply that by the length. Okay, random is a function, and then we're going to multiply that by the random colors dot length. Okay, so now we just need to simply return this, returning a random color, return random color, because we're selecting a random index here. The method flow give us a whole number, so here we're just selecting a random index by using the random function, and then we're just returning that here, the random color. Okay, so that's what we need to do. So now we need to take that color, the random color, and find a way to access it in our CSS. How do we do that? Well, let's create a new prop. Let's do colors. Okay, colors, that's the name of the prop. And then here we just pass in the random randomized color. It should be random color, randomized color. Let's pass in that function because it's returning a random color every time. Okay, so what we need to do is access that prop down in the CSS. So how do we do that? Let's do background. Instead from red, let's do props as usual. You know this already. Props, and then we're gonna do props. Instead, this time we're not accessing the theme, we're accessing the colors. Colors, not color, but colors. Okay, not the theme. So when I save, we should have random colors. There they are. So now we have random colors every time I refresh, as you can see. But when I try to move around this item, it keeps re-rendering. I don't know, there's some kind of a re-render somewhere. The performance is not good, so we need to use memo to kind of manage the performance, to only keep the memory of the color on the first render, to keep that memory, and then only when the page refreshes, that's when we change the color, instead of keep re-rendering like this. Okay, so this is not good for performance. As you can see, the color keeps changing. It's really not good for performance. So what we need to do is use the memo. Okay, so we need to use the memo hook. So we're gonna say use memo. I'm gonna say const. I'm gonna say random color memo. Okay, so we need to manage the performance of this, and then we're gonna need to say use memo. Make sure you import use memo. It's gonna take in a callback function. Okay, so we're going to take a callback function, and then we need to pass in an empty dependency array here as well. Similar to use effect when you're passing an empty dependency array. And then here we just need to return randomize color. Okay, randomize, I think, color, like this. Okay, randomize color, this function here. Okay, copy this random color memo and change it to change the colors prop to random color memo. So when I save, now it's keeping the previous, like when I refresh, so the current color is gonna keep it. Okay, it's not changing every time. It's not triggering any kind of re-render or any changes in the colors. So this is the best way to do it without affecting performance. So everything works fine. We can sort everything fine. Perfect. So now we have done the memo. So now what else do we need to do? Actually, now let's do the active. So when it's active and active, so when it's active, I'm going to, when I click the li when it's active, I'm going to make it smaller. As you can see here, it's small. Okay, I want to make it smaller. And then the p tag, so for the p tag, I'm going to use a clamp as well for the font size. Okay, and then I'm gonna paste in. All right, and then the color. I'm just gonna say white for now. I will change this later. So this is temporary. Okay. So now that's pretty much it for the li. We'll come back to it later on. Okay. So now let's style the complete button. So the complete button is on its own. I'm just gonna paste it here. Complete button. I'm gonna set position absolute, top 50%, font size, padding, font family, display flex, align item center, and just background center. Just the standard style. Okay. Top 50% is to align it 50% from the top. And then I'm going to give it a background. I'm going to give it a background of transparent. Okay, background transparent. And then I'm going to target the icon. Okay, so the icon, I'm going to give it a border radius of 50% because I want it to be rounded. And then I'm going to give it a box shadow. Okay, box shadow. 1 pixel shadow on the x-axis, 3 pixels on the y, 7 pixels for the blur. RGBA is 0. Red, green 0. 0 for RGB for blue, and then alpha 0.3, 30%. Okay, perfect. So now there it is. Nice. Okay, so now that's pretty much it. We're going to do the colors later on. And also, actually, let's do the grid, toggling the grid. Okay, so in the app, we need to do the grid. So for the grid, we have some CSS that we need to add and some HTML. In the URL, I'm gonna say dot priority container, and then I'm gonna say p. I'm gonna say priority, and then I'm gonna create a div. I'm gonna say dot toggle grid. Okay, it's not toggler but toggle grid. Yeah, I'm just gonna add a button. Doesn't have a name actually. I'm just gonna name it grid. Okay, priority, and then I'm gonna say another p tag here. I'm just gonna say hi. Okay, I'm gonna show you what I mean. So here, as you can see, we have the priority, and then we have the icon here for the grid and list, and then hi, when you can filter through based on priority. So the lowest is going to be low, the high is going to be high. Okay, and then after the to-dos, and then we're going to add another class. It's called low priority. It contains a paragraph tag. Okay, save. So we should have a low, and high priority. Okay, so now we just need to go back to the styles and style them. Okay, and then pretty much everything will start to come together nicely. So priority, what else do we need to style here? To-dos container. So that's the container. Actually, let me put this into a container. Let me put this one to-dos into a container. Actually, I'm gonna say .to-dos, and then I'm gonna paste that into a container on its of its own. Okay, so it's in its in its own container. I'm gonna collapse this. I'm gonna scroll down. So right in the to-dos container, that's when I want to do the to-dos. Okay, dot to-dos. So here in the to-dos, I'm going to either display a grid, or see, when I click here, it's either displaying a grid or a list item. Okay, so I want to do conditional styling. Okay, so we're going to do that later, but first off, let's start by styling these first. Okay, I'm gonna select the priority container after the to-dos. I'm going to do display flex, align display flex to display to flex, justify content space between, align items to center, and then I'm just going to give it a margin bottom of 2 rem. Okay, margin bottom like spacing at the bottom 2 rem. Display flex side by side, just justify content space between. Okay, and then I'm going to select the paragraph in the priority. Font size, I'm going to clamp it from 1 rem to 2 rem, and then a color of gray 2. Okay, that's the color. And then I'm going to target the last child, and then give it a color of danger. The last child is the p tag of high, and then the color of danger is like a red color. There it is. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to do toggle grid. Okay, and then there's a button in the toggle grid. I'm going to select the button. I'm going to give it a padding, a background, a border, and a font size, color, transition. Okay, so you can do these styles quicker on your computer because you might have auto completion, but for some reason I don't know what extension I've installed which is messing up with my auto completion. Okay, saved. As you can see, it says grid. Okay, perfect. So I want to click this button, change the icon, and change the state. Okay, let me start the low priority first. Okay, I'm gonna say dot low priority. It depends what you've named your classes, so make sure if you want to follow along like the same way, name the classes the way I've named them. Okay, margin top, display flex, justify content flex end, which means I want it to be at this side here. Display flex, flex end to the right side. Okay, that's what I want it to be here, flex end. And then I'm going to target the p tag. I'm going to give it a font size and a font weight. Okay, I'm going to do background clip because I want to have a gradient. I'm going to clip text. Okay, and then background, it's going to be the gradient, the primary green gradient. Okay, clip text, and then we're going to say web clip background text, background clip text as well, and then we're going to say WebKit fill color, and then we're just going to say transparent. Okay, like this, we should have a gradient. The clip text, actually, the order matters actually how you do this. So the clip text should be below the gradient. Okay, and then that's, so we have the background first, and then we clip it. Okay, and then now as you can see we have the gradient. All right, so now we need to do the grid state first. Let's do the state for the grid. So I'm going to create a new state. I'm going to call it toggle grid. So the new state, I'm going to say const toggle grid set toggle grid, go to use state. Okay, I'm going to say false by default. So by default it's on the list. We're setting to false. Okay, so toggle grid. I'm gonna create a new function to handle, like, the toggling of the grid. I'm just gonna go down here. I'm gonna say handle grid. I'm gonna create a function called grid handler. So make sure I create a function like this, grid handler, and then I'm gonna set grid, set toggle grid to not, oops, so toggle grid to not toggle grid. Okay, the opposite. When we click it, we want to change the state from false to true, or from true to false. Grid handler, copy that. When I click this one, I'm gonna say on click. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna change the state value. I'm gonna say save. Let me inspect. Go to the components app. Let's see. So our state is false. So when I click the grid, hopefully it should be true. Now it's true. Okay, it's toggling true and false, true and false. All right. So it's working. It's toggling fine. So grid handler. So now what I need to do is change the icon. Okay. So to do the icon, we need to look for icons. Here I'm gonna say const grid equal to, go to font awesome. Oh, not the CDN. Font awesome. Search. Find any icons that you want. Let's do grid. Let's go for free. So we're looking for a grid. Anything that you want to use as a grid. I can't remember the name of the icon I'm using. It's called column, actually. Column. There, this one. Copy this icon and then paste it, and then just change the name to class name. Also, I have a list icon. I'm just gonna paste it here. So now we have grid and list icons. So we want to conditionally display these icons. Okay, so here I'm gonna say if grid handler is true, I'm gonna use a ternary operator. Grid handler, if it's true, what are we displaying? I think we're displaying a grid or a list. Okay, so now where something's off. When I click grid or list, what did I do for the list? List, check, save. Let me inspect this. For some reason it's not changing the icon. Components app, state false, true. It's changing the state, but the icon is not changing. Let me see why. It's rather strange. Grid handler. Okay, so on click we have grid handler. Oh, it's not grid handler, it's actually toggle grid. The grid handler is the function. Okay, so now it's toggling between the icons. Perfect. Okay, so now what we want to do is conditionally display grid or list. So let's go to the app. So to the app, that's where we need to do the conditions to either do the grid or the list. So we need to do it in the to-dos. Okay, so in the to-dos, to do's here. Okay, we're gonna do display. Display is either, so we're going to select the props. We're going to do props, so, and then we're going to do props dot. So we're looking for a prop called grid. We need to create a prop called grid. Okay, so here we need to do a grid prop. We'll do grid equal to toggle grid. Okay, the state value. Okay, so yeah, grid. So props are grid. Okay, so it's a ternary operator. Then we're going to do grid, then otherwise default. Okay, and then let's do template columns. Create template columns. So we're going to do auto fit. So they're going to adjust automatically. They're going to be automatically responsive. Auto fit, they're going to, you know, adjust accordingly. So the min max, the minimum width is 400 pixels. Okay, if they don't fit, they go to the next line, and then whenever they're each going to have the equal size, and then we're going to give it a grid gap of 1 rem, like so. So now let's save. Okay, when I click, nothing happens yet. Grid, I'll give it a column, and then we're going to give it a grid row gap. It's going to be conditional. Okay, it's going to be 1 rem or nothing, and then let's give it a transition. Okay, now let's save. Okay, nothing happens. Let me see why. Okay, toggle grid, up styled. Where did I put toggle grid? Okay, I named it grid. Let's get rid of this class name up here. Toggle grid. That's fine. Let me inspect actually. Let me inspect this. Inspect li to-dos. Display grid. Something weird is going on here. Let me see. To-dos. Oh, make sure you close it. Okay, perfect. So now we have a grid, a functioning grid. Okay. Perfect. So now the grid works fine. So for the list view, we need to do some kind of, you know, margin. Okay. Now let me try to give it a margin bottom. I'm actually going to pass in the grid because I want to conditionally do the margin for the list view. So grid, let's go to the list here, the list, and then I'm going to pass in the grid and toggle grid because I want to access the grid in here, the state for the grid. I do grid, so I want to access the state in here for the grid, and then I want to conditionally do a margin bottom for the li. Margin bottom, let's do props and then the grid. Okay, so if the grid is true, we're going to do a margin of 0, else margin 1 rem, but we need to create a prop as well here. Theme, we need a grid prop theme. Okay, So now we have a grid. So now we're accessing the grid prop down here in the li. Okay, down here in the li. So let's save. Let's refresh actually. For some reason, make sure margin bottom, props, grid. Just make sure everything is correct. Let me inspect why the margin bottom is not working. To-dos, li, margin bottom 0. Wait a minute. Let me try to switch them up. 0. Okay. Margin bottom. Let me do 0 here. List and grid. Let me check the state components up. So the grid is equal to true. So if grid is true, and then the padding, actually we want it to be 0 margin bottom. If not, we're going to set that to 1 rem. I think, yep. Like so. Also for the list view, I think I need to do grid again as well in the app. I need to do conditional. Okay, so let me go back. App.js. Where did I do the conditional to-dos? So here, grid row gap. So if grid equal to true, we're gonna set the row gap to 1 rem or empty. Okay, that's reasonable. Let me save. It's weird. Let me inspect again. Li. Margin bottom is still set to 0. Ah, 1 rem doesn't make sense. Okay, let me I don't know why the margin bottom is not working. That's what I'm trying to fix. I'm trying to figure out why it's not working. So if the grid is true, no margin bottom. If it's not, 1 rem. Strange. What's going on the straight? So if it's true, the grid right now is false. It should be 1 rem margin bottom. Should be 1 rem. If it's false, if it's true, true, 1 rem. So grid true, margin bottom 0. If it's false, 1 rem. So for some reason, I don't know why it's showing 0. Linear, let's style none. Very strange. Anyways, we'll fix it later. Let's continue. It's weird. Okay, inspect. Let's go to the li. Now it's setting margin bottom to 1 rem when I don't want it. So grid gap, let's go to the app. Get rid of the grid column gap. Actually, yeah. We need to get rid of the column gap. Let's try to get rid of that. Let's see what we get. Column gap. No, I mean the row gap. Let's get rid of the row gap. So here it's 1 rem. Let's get rid of that. Okay, perfect. Now it works. So list grid, list grid. Something is going on the list with the icon. It's not on the correct position. So li margin bottom 1 rem. Okay, margin bottom 1 rem. So what I want to do is go to the list. This button here. So I'm going to do a calculation. So if grid 50%, so if grid, I'm gonna do like this, props, I'm gonna say props the grid. If it's true, I'm gonna say calc I'm gonna say 50% plus 1 rem, I think. Like this, or 50%. Okay, let's save. Let's see what we got. Okay, it should be minus 50%, top 50%, minus 1 rem. This is strange. Grid true or 50%. Let me inspect this again. Okay, I'll leave this alone for now. I'll be back to it. Now let's continue. Let's do something else. Now now we're sorting. What's next? Actually, add file. Let's add something more. Okay, so now let's get rid of the scroll bar. So let's go to the global style. To get rid of the scroll bar, we just need to go to the body. I'm just gonna do body, and then here we're just gonna say WebKit scroll bar. In here we're just gonna set the width to 0 pixels. Okay, so now we can still scroll, but we don't have a scroll bar anymore. Okay, so now we need to do the completed. When we click this, it should complete and check the item that we completed. Let me check how long we almost 2 hours. Okay, so we want to check the item that we completed. So we're going to do the completed. We're going to create a new method, a new function, not method, a new function to handle the completion of the item. Okay, I'm gonna collapse this. I'm gonna say handle completion. Okay, so this function is going to be code handle completed. It's going to take in the ID. It's going to take in the ID. Okay, so here I'm going to say const. We're just basically going to map through the to-dos. Okay, we say new to-dos, and then we're just going to map through. We're going to say to-dos dot map. So for each to-do, I want to say if to-do dot id is equal to id. It's if it's corresponding to whatever ID we pass in. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to change the state. Okay, to do the completed to not to do completed. So if it's false, it's going to go to true. If it's true, it's going to go to false. Okay, completed is just going to toggle between, and then we're just going to return this to do. Okay, and say return. Return to do. Okay, and then we're just going to say set. We're updating the to-dos. Okay, we're going to set to new to-dos. Okay, that's it. That's completed. Now I'm just going to pass that as a prop and completed. Okay, so I'm passing the function as a prop because I want to have access of that function inside the list. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the list. So I want to destructure that. So we want to be able to use it. Okay, right now. So how are we gonna use it? So well, let's go to the complete. Okay, so here on double click, we're going to do a callback function, and then we're just going to pass in the ID. Okay, the ID of whatever we double click, which is coming from the here we're destructuring the ID, we're passing in through the ID, we're sending in the ID, we're mapping through, and then we're sending in the ID. Okay, and then that ID, whatever item we double click on, and then we want to change the state. Inspect. Let's go to the state. So let's go to the components. So we're looking for, so look, everything is ticked false. So when I double click, it should change to true. Double click, nothing happens. Seems like we have an error somewhere. Let's go to the console. Let's check if we have an error. Seems like we do handle completed is not a function. Handle completed is not a function. Something is wrong. Let's go back here. Handle completed is not a function. Handle completed is not a function. Now let me refresh again. Double click. Okay, now nothing happens. Let's go to the app. Something should be true. Okay, as you can see, the one I double clicked is true now. Double click again, something else is true. When I double click again, it's gonna be false. Okay, so it's like a toggle in between true, false, true, false, true, false. Okay, perfect. So it's changing the completed property. So I'm going to create that property as a prop. Okay, because I want to access that prop within the styles. So I'm gonna say completed. So I have a prop now. Completed is not defined because we are not destructuring completed, are we? Oh, it shouldn't be here. It should be in the list. Okay, completed. So now we should have the completed. So now I want to style the paragraph according to completed. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the li paragraph. I'm gonna style the color. I'm gonna say color. The usual props.completed. So completed, if it's true, well, I want the color to be green. It's completed, else I want the color to be gray 0. Okay, so just ternary operator, the color to be gray 0. Let me make sure you close this one with a semicolon. Okay, something's wrong. Seems like it's not working. Completed. Save. Okay, props the completed. Let me inspect this. Li. Actually, the paragraph. Oops, let me refresh. Ah, it's working actually. Double click, it's working. See, it's turning green. Okay, perfect. It's toggling the state. So now that's the paragraph. So I want to do the text decoration and put a line through. I'm going to remove the color white. I'm going to say text decoration. I'm going to, do a check to see completed if it's true. If it's completed, I'm going to put a line through. If not, I'm going to say none text decoration. So completed, line through, none, line through. There's no line through for some reason. Color, line through, completed. Okay, oops. Make sure I'll put it at the end. Save. There's no line through. Make sure, I think the spelling might be wrong. Text decoration is correct. What did I do wrong? Text, oh, it says text decoration twice. Okay, double click. Okay, now it's underlining. Perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to go and do the same thing for the icon. Okay, so after the complete button, we need to do the same check. Okay, but the color I'm going to be using is color primary green and then color icons 2. Okay, same check, same conditional. When I double click, it's working. Okay, Perfect. Grid is working. List view works. We can sort. Add new task. Okay, everything works. We can sort, but the only issue for now is local storage. Okay, so now let's begin working on local storage. I don't think it's going to be that difficult, but work with local storage, and then we're going to do animations after that. Okay, so for local storage, let's go back to the app. Okay, so to the app, I'm gonna collapse this, remove to do, and the change. I'm gonna do it up here. Let's say local storage. So for local storage, I'm gonna say const. I'm gonna create a function. Let's do save to local storage. It's gonna tell. Let's put in. It's gonna take a parameter. Let's name it to-dos. Okay. So in the save local storage, I'm gonna say if we have the to-dos. Okay. If to-dos, what are we going to do? So we're going to say local storage, and then we're going to say dot set item. That's how we send an item. Okay. And then we're going to name the item to-dos. And then we're just going to convert that to JSON, to a stringify. And then basically we're just sending the to-dos. Okay. We're saving to local storage. And then we're going to do a use effect to, send the items to the local storage. Okay. Or when we submit the items, whatever items we submit, we want to send those items to the local storage. Actually, let's go to the submit first. Okay, so when we go to handle submit, handle submit. Okay, there we are. So in the handle submit, I'm gonna say send to local storage. After everything we submit, and then we're going to send to local storage. We're just going to say save to local storage, the function. And then what are we going to send to the local storage? Well, the new to-dos. Okay, whatever. After we create a new to-do, we're going to send that to local storage. I'm going to now inspect. And then I'm going to application. Our local storage. Wait, there's nothing yet. There's nothing. I'm going to say new to-do. So as you can see, now we have the to-dos. Now everything is added to the local storage. As you can see, we have all of these items here. Okay, they're there in the local storage. Let me just do settings. Settings. Oops. Can't remember how. Okay, here. I want to do this actually. Okay, so now with the to-dos in the local storage, when I add new item, it's adding new item to the local storage. Okay, there we go. So we're adding the local storage, but when I refresh, everything is still there, as you can see. Okay, everything is still in the local storage, but we want to be able to retrieve these items from the local storage. Okay, so how do we retrieve these items? Well, on the first render, that's when we want to retrieve these items. Okay, on first render, I'm going to create a new function. Go back and submit. Let me go up. After the save to storage, I'm gonna say retrieve from local storage. I'm gonna say use effect. Now run a use effect. It's gonna take in a callback function, and then an empty dependence array. Okay, so here, what are we going to do? I'm gonna say const local to-dos equal to local storage. So to get an item, just to get item, and then what are we getting? We have the to-dos. Okay, we're getting to-dos. So make sure the name matches whatever you've named your, when you're setting an item to the local storage, make sure it matches this when you're retrieving the item. Okay, so I'm gonna say if local to-dos, if we have them, and then we're gonna set to-dos, we're gonna update the, the state. I'm gonna do JSON. We're going to pass that, the data, we're going to pass it, and then we're gonna say local to-dos. Okay, so now when I refresh, the data stays there. Okay, refresh, it stays there, it's not going anywhere. So when I did double click, it's deleting, double click, deleting. But as you can see, when I refresh, it's still getting the data from the local storage, but we want to update the local storage. We want to delete the local storage data as long as we delete some items in the interface of our app. Okay, so after the saves to local storage, I'm going to do delete from local storage. So to delete from local storage, I'm going to create a new function. I'm going to name it remove item from local storage, and then it's going to take in an ID of the item that we want to remove. Okay, so it's basically a filtering const. I'm going to say filter data, and then here we're just going to filter the to-dos dot filter. It's going to take in a callback function to do, and then what are we going to return? We're going to return if the ID items don't match the ID. Okay, if the to-do ID doesn't match the ID that we're going to pass in, we want to return all of those items. The one that matches is basically the delete functionality that we've done before. So basically the same thing. Okay, so here we're going to say local storage dot set item. Okay, we're gonna say to-dos, and then here we're just gonna say JSON dot stringify, and then filtered. Okay, so basically sending the filtered data now without the ID that we pass in here. Okay, perfect. So now to remove from local storage, so remove item from local storage. When do we want to remove the item? So when we remove to do, that's when we want to remove the item. Scroll down, remove to do. So before filter, okay, we want to remove item from local storage, and then we're gonna pass in the ID. Okay, save. Now let's see. Refresh. So the last item is DDD. Double click DDD. As you can see, it's removing from the local storage. When I refresh, as you can see, it doesn't come back. Same as the data in here, it doesn't come back. Okay, so it's persisting in the local storage. So now I think that's what we need to do for the local storage for now. Let me check let me refresh. Yep, actually the state, as we need to send this state in the local storage as well. When I save, it's not saving the state of the grid. Okay, so we need to save this. Oops. Actually, the completed. Double click, completed. Okay, yep. So the completed as well. It's not keeping the state. Okay, so we need to save the local storage the completed. So let's go to the handle completed. Here, well, we just need to copy it to say save the function here. Call the function save to local storage, and then we're gonna pass in the new to-dos. Okay, now refresh. Okay, refresh again. As you can see, now it's keeping the state because we're saving to the local storage, and then it's retrieving the state. Okay, refresh. Okay, it's retrieving, it's keeping the state. Perfect. So now we actually need to do the grid. Okay, to send the grid state to local storage. How do we do that? So, well, I'm going to handle, oops, not drag, grid handler in here. I'm going to say local storage, just the standard set item, and then I'm going to name it toggle grid. Okay, so for toggle grid, what I'm going to do, same what thing we done before, JSON to stringify, and then not toggle grid. Okay, the opposite. Okay, so basically when I do this, when I refresh, still not working, but we need a way to retrieve that, the state. Okay, so let me inspect here. So we have toggle grid is there, it's true. When I click again, still true. It's actually toggling now. It's true, false, true, false, true, false. So when I refresh, it's true, right? But it's not changing the interface here. Okay, so we need to retrieve the state from the local storage. So we need to go to the use effect on mount. So when on first render, we want to, you know, retrieve the grid state. Okay, so here I'm gonna paste this. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Okay, so here, grid from local storage. Okay, so here we're going to say set toggle grid, change the state of toggle grid. Okay, and then here we're going to get item instead of local to-dos, local grid. I'm just gonna say local grid. Okay, local grid. I can't remember what I've named it. It's called toggle grid. So make sure the name from the local storage matches. Okay, now save. So now refresh. Okay, now it's maintaining the state. It's false. Now something weird is happening here. Okay, it's false. Refresh. Something weird. Okay, local storage, local grid, get item, toggle grid, local grid, set. Oh, it's local to-dos. It should be local grid. Okay, so now refresh, should work. Refresh. Okay, it's keeping the state. Add keeping the state, we can still sort these items. Okay, we can complete. Okay, sort. Everything is working fine. So now let's do the animations. Actually, let me see how much time we have. Okay, I think I'll just do the animations and that's it. Okay, let's do the animations. Now let's start with the list. Okay, so I want to animate and then remove the item. Okay, so to animate and remove, so I'm gonna create a ref, name ref and to do ref. Okay, here I'm gonna say refs. I'm gonna make this as fast as I can. Use ref from React. So make sure you import use ref, and then I'm going to pass these references. So the name ref should be on the name ref. So we have name ref, and then the other one is a to do ref. Okay, do the references. So the to do ref, name ref, oops. So the to do ref should be here. Perfect. So now we need to animate these. So to do animations, I want to animate on delete. So we're going to use GSAP. Okay. Let's do animate. Where can we do the animations? I'll just do them down here. So animations. So I'm gonna say const animate and remove from DOM. Okay, that's what I decided to name the function. Okay, so I'm gonna say GSAP. So we need to import GSAP. Import GSAP. Okay, from GSAP like this. Okay, so now we can use GSAP .2. I'm gonna say to do ref dot current, the current. Okay, so this should be like function the current. So here I'm gonna say duration. I'm gonna say 0.5, and then opacity, I'm gonna set that to 0, and then I'm gonna say Y. I'm gonna say minus 20 pixels on the y-axis, and then on the rotation, let's do X. Rotation X, I'm gonna say 180, and then what do we want to, on complete, when you complete the animation, then that's when we want to remove the to do. Okay, remove to do, and then we pass in the ID. Okay, animate and remove from DOM. So on double click, we don't want to when we double click, we don't want to remove the to do. Now we want to animate first and then remove the to do. Save, double click, it's animating now. Okay, so when I refresh, nothing is coming back. Okay, add, double click, animating. Okay, perfect. So now we've done this animation. Let's do one more animation. Actually, let's do the completed, shall we? Actually, let's animate the list item. Let's do list anim. Okay, use effect. I'm taking a callback function. So here we want to trigger the animation when the completed changes. Okay, so here we're gonna say gsap.from. Okay, so here we're gonna say name ref.current. Okay, comma. In here we're gonna do duration, y, rotation, and a bit of a delay. Okay, duration, and then on complete, what do you want to do? We want to do another animation. Okay, on complete, we're going to animate the name ref again. Okay, what's the issue here? .2, missing this. Perfect. So now on complete, I'm going to paste in the properties, which is going to be the duration, opacity. It starts from 0 to 1, y from 20 to 0, rotation from 180 to 0. Okay, we're animating the name as save. Okay, so when I sort of double click, it's like, you know, animating the text. Okay, when I change the state of completed to true or false, it's animating. Okay, that's it for these simple animations. For the now I need to animate the form. Okay, so I'll go back to the home page, to the app.js, to do the animations for the form. So we need to give some references as well. I'm gonna say refs. So the references that we need in here is to just name these references whatever you want. Make sure you import use ref. Okay, use ref. So now this, we need to create references for this one. So we have to-do's ref, to-do's container. Okay, so now find the to-do's. Okay, okay, so now we need to do the references. Okay, let me see, where do I need to pass in the reference? For the form, let's do ref form ref for the reference, for the form reference. Now we have the reference for the form. We also need the to-do's. To-do's ref to-do's ref. Okay, if we need more references, we'll add them. Let me see, to-do form ref. What else do we create up here? To-do's container, to-do's container. Okay, so the to-do's container, we're gonna do another ref, to-do's con, like this. That's the reference name. And then now we need to start doing the animations. Okay, so in here we're going to do another use effect, animate. So here I'm going to do use effect for big function. So this is only going to run on initial render. Okay, on initial render, I'm going to create a timeline. I'm going to say const tl for timeline, gsub timeline. I'm going to say equal to gsub dot timeline. Okay, I'm going to pass in the default. So by default, I want the duration. Let's start with ease. Actually, let's do power dot out. So you can visualize these transitions. I'll show you what I mean. So GSAP. I'm not importing GSAP in here. So I actually need to import GSAP. Make sure it's just GSAP, not trial version. GSAP. So scroll down. Okay, so timeline. You have ease. I'm gonna put a comma. We need to do duration. So default duration, I'm just gonna set it to 1 second. So I'm gonna show you transition visualizer. GSAP. I think it's ease visualizer. Yeah, it's called ease visualizer. So here you can kind of create your own custom ease effect. Okay, when you go to custom, you can customize this. Okay, to create your own custom, easing effect. Okay, so I'm just going to use the default one from GSAP. And then here, let's do TL timeline, and then dot from to. So from to, I'm gonna do to-dos ref. We're gonna do to-dos ref the current. Okay, and then we're just going to do an object. We're going to do opacity to 1. It's going to start from 1. X, it's going to start from 0. And then duration, let's set that to 0.5. And then this is the from direction. And then it's going to go to somewhere. Okay. Actually, let's start from opacity. Let's start from 0 opacity. X, let's start from 800 pixels. And then we're going to separate those with a comma. So it's going to start from 2. Okay. From 2. I don't need this. And I don't need this. Okay. Now save. Now let's refresh. That's a weird animation. We'll fix the animation. So X 800, opacity 0. Actually X 0. It's going to come back to the normal default position. It's going to start 800 pixels away, and then come back to the 0 position, the default position. Okay. We're going to do dot from to after that, because it's a timeline. Okay, so we can keep going. Here I'm going to do this. We're going to do the to-dos container, and then I'm just going to paste in the from to. Okay, so I'm going to paste in. So it's going to start in from the opacity of 0, the Y scale 800 pixels, the scale 0.5. It's gonna go to opacity of 1, Y to 0. Okay, I'm gonna remove this. All right, now I'm gonna save. Seems like there's a problem somewhere. To this container, the current. Let me inspect to see what the issue is. Console. From to is not a function. Right. Oh, I'm missing a. from to. Yeah, it's weird anyway. So let me space this out so you can see. Okay, like this. I'm gonna refresh. So let me see the animation. Okay, that's the animation. Now let's do the form ref. Okay, so for the form, I'm gonna start with from to again. Let's comment this. Container animation. To do's container animation. Okay, so we have to do's container animation. So here I'm just gonna do a from to animation. From to properties. I'm just gonna pass in the properties. Okay, so I'm gonna save. Okay, so yeah, the animations work fine. So I'm going to now explain what's going on here now. So basically we're creating a new timeline. So a timeline is like a timeline we can play animations one after another. So this one, it means, so when this animation plays, I want to play minus 0.5, like, you know, before. Let's say this animation lasts for 1 second, and then it's gonna play after 1 second, and then after, if this one plays for 1 second, this one will play like after 2 seconds. So it's gonna wait until these animations play. So if I want to sort of, you know, play the animation before the duration of this one, I have to sort of give a negative value of negative the time you want to play the animation before the duration of the animation ahead of it. Okay, so this one, if it's 1 second, so this one is gonna play on the duration of 0.5 because it's minus 0.5. Okay, depending on what value you put here. So if you want to play sooner, you can put minus 0.8, 0.9, or if you want to play late, you can do minus 0.1, minus 0.1, depending on the duration you put. Okay, and then here we're just setting the properties from to go to a certain, you know, to a certain state. So opacity is going to start at 0, and then it's going to go to 1. So it's self-explanatory. Everything here you see is quite self-explanatory actually. Okay, so now let's go to the browser and let's refresh. Everything works fine. Double click. Learn the guitar 1 hour. 1 hour of code, Python programming. Okay, so now we can sort based on priorities. So learning the guitar, I'll say Python programming, 1 hour of code. You know, I can change the state. I can put into a grid. I can still sort these out. I can refresh. Everything is gonna be stay there. I'm gonna get rid of it. Perfect. So now I'm gonna click grid. So now it's time to fix this issue here, the button here, to see why. So here it's fine here. I managed to, like, you know, get around it here, but I don't know why it's being weird here. Let me see how much time I've done here. Oh, it's 2 hours 30. I think I'll try to do this in a minute. If I can't do it in a minute, that would be like your homework to find how to fix it. It'd be like, you know, your own assignment to find how to fix the button. Okay, So now let's go to the inspect. So I'm looking for complete pattern. Adding top 50%. Actually, I think I need to look at the li. So li margin bottom. List style, background. Okay, so let me go to the list. Li margin bottom. It's very strange. Very, very strange. Actually, I need to set a grid gap instead of a margin bottom. So here it's fine. So when the grid is true, margin bottom 0, and then 1 rem when it's not true. Okay, but then why is it not showing here? Something weird is going on. Okay, let's go here. Let's do a grid gap in the app. Okay, let me copy the grid row gap. Let me see the grid row gap if it's gonna work. But for the list, li for some reason the condition is not working here. Okay, so if it's a grid, li let me do 0 here. Let me exchange this to my rem. Okay, I'll take that. Okay, I'll leave it like this. Actually, that's another way around it. Okay, so yeah, everything works fine. You can sort it even as a grid. Okay, and you can undo. The local storage works fine. You can add more items. Color, we're getting a random unique color. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the project. So if you have any questions, if you want to request a project or anything, you can let me know through the comment section. And also please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one.